Most people today know Diana Ross as a singer, but those of us who were there in 1972 remember the night everything changed. We remember sitting in movie theaters, waiting for the lights to dim, not quite sure what we were about to witness. Diana Ross was stepping into a role that terrified her, playing a woman whose story was as tragic as it was triumphant. The movie was Lady Sings the Blues, and the woman was Billie Holiday. What happened that night wasn't just a performance, it was a transformation that shook Hollywood to its core and proved that Diana Ross was more than just a pretty voice from Motown. Do you remember the anticipation leading up to that film? The way black communities talked about it for months before it premiered. This wasn't just another movie. This was Diana Ross, our Diana, taking on one of the most challenging roles imaginable. Billie Holiday's life had been marked by genius and suffering in equal measure, and the question on everyone's mind was whether Diana could capture that complexity. Some folks were skeptical. After all, Diana was known for glamour and polish, for sequin gowns and perfect choreography. Could she portray the raw, broken beauty of Lady Day? Berry Gordy believed she could. He'd founded Motown Records and built Diana into a superstar, and now he was betting everything on her ability to act. He knew that if Diana could pull this off, she would transcend music and become something bigger. But the pressure was immense. Diana had never acted in a feature film before. She was stepping into territory where she had no proven track record, where critics were already sharpening their knives, ready to dismiss her as a singer trying to do too much. The preparation for the role consumed Diana completely. She studied Billie Holiday's recordings obsessively, listening to every inflection, every moment of pain that bled through Billie's voice. She watched footage of Billie performing, noting the way she held herself, the vulnerability in her eyes, the way addiction and heartbreak had marked her body. Diana lost weight for the role, allowing herself to look gaunt and fragile in ways that went against every instinct of a performer who'd spent years maintaining a glamorous image. But it was the emotional preparation that tested Diana most severely. To play Billie Holiday meant accessing depths of pain and desperation that Diana had never publicly displayed. She had to portray addiction, abuse, racism, and the slow destruction of a brilliant woman by forces beyond her control. Some of y'all remember the first time you saw the trailer for Lady Sings the Blues. You remember the shock of seeing Diana Ross with her face twisted in anguish, her body convulsing through withdrawal, her voice raw with pain instead of polished to perfection. It didn't look like the Diana we knew. It looked real. It looked dangerous. It looked like maybe, just maybe, she was about to do something extraordinary. The movie premiered in October 1972, and black folks showed up in numbers that Hollywood hadn't anticipated. We filled theaters from New York to Los Angeles, from Chicago to Atlanta, dressed in our finest because this was an event. This was our Diana Ross proving herself on a new stage, and we were going to be there to witness it. Diana appeared on screen, and she wasn't Diana anymore. She was Billie. Young, hopeful, already carrying the seeds of tragedy that would eventually destroy her. The transformation was complete and unsettling. Her voice, when she sang Billie's songs, wasn't the soaring Motown sound we knew. It was grittier, more vulnerable, capturing Billie's wounded beauty without trying to imitate her exactly. The movie didn't shy away from the brutal realities of Billie Holiday's life. It showed racism in visceral detail, the segregated South, the way white club owners and audiences treated black performers, the casual cruelty that was woven into every aspect of Billie's existence. It showed addiction with a frankness that was shocking for 1972, depicting Diana's character shooting heroin, suffering through withdrawal, spiraling into desperation. For black audiences watching, these weren't abstract historical facts. These were realities our communities still faced, pain we recognized, struggles that resonated across generations. The scene that broke everyone's hearts came midway through the film. Diana, as Billie, was in the throes of heroin withdrawal, locked in a room, her body racked with pain and desperation. The camera stayed on her face as she screamed, cried, and begged for relief. There was no music to soften the moment, no glamour to hide behind. It was just Diana Ross, stripped of every defense, showing us suffering in its purest form. In theaters across the country, you could hear people crying, gasping, turning away from the screen because it hurt too much to watch. Do you remember sitting in that theater, watching Diana transform before your eyes? You remember the moment you realized she wasn't acting anymore. She'd become someone else entirely, someone carrying pain that felt absolutely real. For those of us who'd grown up with the Supremes, who'd watched Diana in her sequin gowns and perfect makeup, this was jarring and powerful. Our Diana was showing us she could do more than sing and smile. She could break your heart. For those of us who'd grown up with the Supremes, who'd watched Diana in her sequin gowns and perfect makeup, this was jarring and powerful. Our Diana was showing us she could do more than sing and smile. She could break your heart. The performance earned Diana an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, and when that announcement came, black communities erupted in celebration. This was unprecedented. A black woman, a singer from Motown, nominated alongside established Hollywood actresses like Liza Minnelli, Maggie Smith, and Cicely Tyson. Diana didn't win. Liza Minnelli took home the Oscar for Cabaret, but the nomination itself was a victory that changed what was possible for black performers. For black audiences, though, Diana had already won. We'd watched her take on a role that required vulnerability and courage, and she delivered a performance that honored Billie Holiday while establishing her own credibility as an actress. The film made over $9 million at the box office, a substantial success that proved black stories could draw audiences and make money. Hollywood took notice. The impact of Lady Sings the Blues rippled through the entertainment industry in ways both visible and subtle. Suddenly, black actresses were being considered for dramatic roles that previously would have gone exclusively to white performers. Suddenly, stories about black musical legends were seen as viable commercial projects. Diana had kicked open a door that had been locked tight, and other black women in entertainment walked through it, carrying their own dreams and talents. Behind the scenes, Diana's experience making the film had been grueling. Director Sidney J. Furie pushed her relentlessly, demanding take after take, never satisfied, always asking for more emotion, more truth, more rawness. There were days Diana cried from exhaustion and frustration, days she wanted to quit and go back to the safety of singing. But she didn't quit. She pushed through, driven by the same determination that had made her a star in the first place. Billy D. Williams, who played Louis McKay in the film, provided support and chemistry that elevated their scenes together. The romance between his character and Diana's Billie gave the film moments of tenderness that balanced the darkness. When they were on screen together, you believed in their love. You understood why Billie kept reaching for connection, as if addiction pulled her toward isolation. Richard Pryor appeared in the film as Piano Man, one of Billie's early friends and supporters. His performance added another layer of authenticity, showing the community of black musicians and entertainers who surrounded Billie, who understood her genius even as they watched her self-destruct. For audiences seeing Pryor in a dramatic role, it was a revelation that mirrored Diana's own transformation. The soundtrack to Lady Sings the Blues became another triumph for Diana. Her renditions of Billie Holiday's songs, Good Morning Heartache, The Man I Love, Them Their Eyes were respectful homages that showcased Diana's vocal range and emotional depth. She didn't try to sound exactly like Billie Holiday. Instead, she found her own way into these standards, singing them with the voice of someone who'd studied pain and learned to transform it into art. Some of y'all bought that soundtrack on vinyl and played it until the grooves wore thin. You remember the way Diana's voice sounded different on these recordings, less polished than her Motown hits, more vulnerable, more willing to let imperfection show. That rawness was part of what made the songs powerful. Diana was allowing us to hear her in ways we never had before, and we responded by embracing this new dimension of her artistry. The cultural impact of Lady Sings the Blues extended far beyond box office numbers and award nominations. For Black women especially, seeing Diana Ross embody Billie Holiday's story created a moment of recognition and validation. Billie's struggles with racism, with men who hurt her, with addiction and the music industry's exploitation, these were not distant historical issues. They were patterns that continued to affect Black women in 1972, and seeing them portrayed honestly on screen mattered deeply. Do you remember the conversations that happened after people saw the film? The way women talked about Billie's strength and her vulnerability, about how the world had used her up and thrown her away. Diana's performance sparked discussions about how society treats Black women, particularly Black women who are talented and beautiful and unwilling to completely submit to others' control. Billie Holiday had lived and died as a cautionary tale, but Diana's portrayal made sure her humanity wasn't forgotten in the tragedy. The film also represented a shift in how Black stories were being told in Hollywood. This wasn't a blaxploitation film filled with stereotypes and cheap thrills. This was a serious biographical drama with a substantial budget, high production values, and complex character development. Berry Gordy's insistence on quality and authenticity paid off, proving that Black audiences deserved and would support films that treated Black lives with dignity and depth. Young Black women watching Diana and Lady Sings the Blues saw possibility reflected back at them. If Diana Ross could transform from a Motown singer into a credible dramatic actress, what might they be able to achieve? The performance became inspirational, not just as entertainment, but as evidence that transformation was possible, that you could remake yourself, that your first identity didn't have to be your final one. Critics, many of whom had been skeptical before the film's release, were largely won over by Diana's performance. Pauline Kael, the influential New Yorker critic, praised Diana's true star quality. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called her performance impressive. These reviews mattered because they came from establishment critics who had no particular reason to champion a Motown singer's acting debut. But the reviews that mattered most came from people who'd known and loved Billie Holiday. Some of Billie's friends and fellow musicians praised Diana's commitment to honoring Lady Day's memory. They recognized that Diana had approached the role with respect and had worked to understand not just Billie's public persona, but her private pain. That endorsement from the jazz community gave the film additional legitimacy and helped cement Diana's place as someone who successfully crossed over into new artistic territory. The success of Lady Sings the Blues also solidified Berry Gordy's transition from record producer to film producer. He'd taken an enormous financial risk producing the film, and its success validated his instincts. For Berry and Diana, the film represented the culmination of their long partnership. He'd believed in her when she was a teenager singing in the Primettes, and now he'd guided her to an Oscar nomination. Some of y'all remember how the film changed the way you thought about Diana Ross. Before Lady Sings the Blues, she was the glamorous lead singer of the Supremes, the Motown princess who never had a hair out of place. After the film, she was something more complex, an artist willing to take risks, willing to look vulnerable and broken, willing to use her platform to tell difficult stories. That complexity made her more interesting, more human, more worthy of the devotion her fans felt. The movie also sparked a renewed interest in Billie Holiday's music. Young people who never heard of Lady Day went searching for her recordings after seeing Diana's portrayal. Record stores reported increased sales of Billie Holiday albums, and radio stations began to play her songs again. In death, Billie received some of the recognition and respect that had been denied to her in life, and Diana's film played a significant role in that resurrection. Hollywood noticed what Diana had accomplished, but the industry's response was complicated. While Diana proved that a black woman could carry a dramatic film and earn critical acclaim, the roles that followed weren't always worthy of her talents. Hollywood still struggled to imagine black women in leading roles that didn't revolve around suffering or service. Diana would make other films, Mahogany in 1975 and The Wiz in 1978, but neither would match the critical success of Lady Sings the Blues. The legacy of Lady Sings the Blues lives on in multiple ways. The film remains a landmark in the history of black cinema, one of the first major studio films to center a black woman's story with depth and complexity. It proved that black audiences would support quality films about black historical figures. Every time you see a film about a black musical legend, you're seeing the path that Lady Sings the Blues helped create. For Diana Ross personally, the film represented the peak of her acting career and a moment of artistic validation that meant as much to her as any musical achievement. She'd proven to herself and to the world that she was more than just a singer with a pretty voice. She was an artist capable of dramatic transformation, emotional depth, and the kind of commitment that great acting requires. That knowledge sustained her through the decades that followed, even when Hollywood didn't offer her roles worthy of what she'd proven she could do. Do you remember watching Diana at award shows after Lady Sings the Blues, seeing her walk red carpets as a legitimate film actress? There was a different kind of confidence in her bearing, a knowledge that she'd conquered territory that seemed impossible. She'd taken the biggest risk of her career and emerged victorious. That accomplishment couldn't be taken away from her, no matter what came after. The film also preserved Billie Holiday's story for generations who might never have discovered her otherwise. While the movie took dramatic liberties with the facts, it captured the emotional truth of a brilliant artist destroyed by racism, addiction, and exploitation. Young people watching the film in 1972 and in the decades since came away understanding that Billie Holiday mattered, that her music was important, that her tragedy was a loss that still resonated. Some of y'all still watch Lady Sings the Blues when you need to remember what Diana Ross was capable of at her peak. You watch the withdrawal scene, the performance scenes, the quiet moments of tenderness with Billy D. Williams, and you marvel at how completely she transformed. You remember being in that theater in 1972, surrounded by your community, watching one of your own prove that excellence knows no boundaries. The night Diana Ross became a movie star wasn't just about one woman's achievement. It was about possibility, about what happens when talent meets opportunity and courage meets challenge. Diana showed black women that we could be more than what others imagined for us, that we could reinvent ourselves, that our stories deserve to be told with artistry and respect. Hollywood changed that night, even if the change was slower and smaller than it should have been. The industry could no longer pretend that black actresses couldn't carry major films. Diana Ross had proven all of that wrong with one extraordinary performance. The doors she opened didn't stay open as wide as they should have, but they never fully closed again either. For those of us who were there, who remember the anticipation and the triumph, Lady Sings the Blues remains a cultural touchstone. It's a reminder of when one of our own took an enormous risk and succeeded spectacularly. It's proof that Diana Ross was never just a singer, never just a pretty face, never just Berry Gordy's creation. She was an artist with depths that only revealed themselves when she was given material worthy of her talents. The film taught us something important about Diana and about ourselves. It showed that transformation is possible, that you can honor those who came before while creating something new, that vulnerability and strength aren't opposites but complementary forces. Diana embodied Billie Holiday's pain without being consumed by it, paid tribute to Lady Day's genius while establishing her own, and emerged from the experience forever changed. Some of y'all remember exactly where you were sitting in the theater when the film ended and the credits rolled. You remember the silence that fell over the audience, the way people sat motionless for a moment before the applause began. You remember walking out into the night feeling like you'd witnessed something important, something that would last. You were right. More than 50 years later, Lady Sings the Blues endures as a testament to what Diana Ross achieved and what she represented, the possibility of transformation, the power of taking risks, and the enduring importance of telling our stories with honesty and heart. The night Diana Ross became a movie star, she also became something more. She became a symbol of what black women could achieve when given the chance. She proved that a girl from Detroit who started singing in housing projects could stand on equal footing with Hollywood's finest, and in doing so, she changed what was possible for everyone who came after her. Which scene from Lady Sings the Blues stayed with you all these years? Do you remember seeing Diana transform into Billie Holiday and knowing you were watching history being made? Drop your memories in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep honoring the moments when our heroes proved the doubters wrong and showed the world what black excellence looks like.